Because you're a little bit more than a far-right Republican.
Hey, what can I say?
I think you could say I'm a fascist.
Yeah, I am.
When Israeli snipers shoot Palestinian children in the head, is that not the fault of Israeli snipers?
What if they're wearing a suicide vest?
They weren't. But listen to me. I am an immigrant. I'm speaking from personal experience.
Get the hell out.
I don't even like... I should get the hell out.
Yes.
Why?
I don't want you here.
Wow, this debate really shows how much the right-wing media, the right-wing algorithms have brainwashed people and influenced young people especially to think this way. To think this kind of shit is okay to say, that is mind-blowing. It also shows how young people today spend so much time indoors, they have such little life experience, they spend so much time in front of the computer on the internet that they come into contact with the right-wing pipeline, the alternative right, you know, the extremist views like this that are promoted by the algorithm, the right-wing capitalist algorithm, have influenced people, young people, to be brainwashed and deluded in this manner. Now, the thing is that technology is not the problem, okay? The media, the internet is not the problem. Social media is not really the problem. The problem is the root socioeconomic premise, the socioeconomic orientation behind the technology. That is the main problem. That influences the technology, influences the media and the internet to put out this kind of garbage, this kind of gibberish, and make it seem relevant to young people. And point number 3, homie, you ain't a fascist. You ain't really a fascist. These kids are just a bunch of dorks with literally no life experience, okay? They haven't gone out there in the real world and experienced what the real world is really about. And you think that sitting in front of the computer, you see a bunch of memes that seem cool. You listen to Alex Jones or, I don't know, PBD or any of these other right-wing podcasters. You think it's cool, like Joe Rogan. Oh, it's so cool to be a fascist. You know, everybody throws the word fascist around left and right without having any idea what fascism actually is and where it actually comes from. So in this video, I'm gonna break it down and talk about what is fascism, what is the root source of fascism, how do we deal with fascism, how do we actually engage and discuss society with fascists, how to actually talk to fascists, and then how in an ideal society, which is truly advanced and humane, how fascism would cease to exist. Okay, how ultimately, that's the goal of the channel, in a real economic system that's actually efficient and provides abundance and it removes scarcity and provides human rights to everybody across the board, an economic system that actually benefits everybody, how that would eliminate the chance of fascism ever existing. But, you know, besides calling these kids dorks and stuff, we are dealing with a serious problem of fascism. We're dealing with the world that is moving towards right-wing authoritarianism across the board, especially in Europe, especially in the United States, and that speaks volumes to the fact that we are heading into the direction of late-stage capitalism. I mean, I would argue that we are already there. We are already experiencing the collapse, the total collapse of capitalism. And as the system collapses and breaks apart, things are going to become more extreme and more right-wing and more fascistic, okay? I'm going to get to that later in the video. But first, let's discuss what is fascism, okay? What is fascism? Now, to me, there are several elements that comprise fascism, and I'll break them down one by one. For one, it's very obvious. It's an authoritarian system, right? Totalitarian in its nature. It's the suppression of democracy, the removal of democratic principles in favor of right-wing authoritarian measures, crackdown on freedom of speech, and removing dissent in society, okay? It's a control measure, okay? Basically, it's a control measure to contain society in a certain state, and one of those principles is actually ultra-nationalism, okay? So authoritarianism, totalitarianism, ultra-nationalism. So it's hyper-patriotism. So people who believe in the United States having a right to do whatever it wants. If you're not fully in line with whatever the Trump regime is doing, you are unpatriotic, you are a traitor, right? And you have to be dealt with. This belief in ultra-hyper-nationalism. We saw it in Nazi Germany, right? They called themselves the Übermensch, right? Deutschland aber alles, which means, Germany overall, right? Germany above everybody else. Another element is militarism and violence. So using state-sanctioned violence against people who are against the system. Anybody who even has the audacity to speak against the fascist system, they'll be cracked down upon, they'll be jailed, they might be even killed. Definitely a violent system. Fascism is definitely a key element of it is violence, okay, and the suppression of rights. Another element is the removal of free speech and using the media, the news, and the education system to brainwash people to believe more and more in the fascistic elements and to support what is going on. So another element is definitely the re-education of the entire population towards the common goal of the fascists, okay? And we see it in America, like we saw with those dorks, right, who were debating to Mehdi Hassan about, oh, like, I'm okay, just get the hell out of this country, and, you know, all the nonsense they're saying. Basically, they have been, without even knowing, they have gone through so much propaganda throughout the internet So much that right-wing pipeline has influenced them to think in that way without them even knowing. Because if you think about it, the right-wing media, the fascistic media, it tries to present itself as like, oh, we care about you, we care about our country, we care about the future of our country. Almost every single fascistic system, fascistic regime throughout history has engaged in self-destruction. It's self-detonated. Yeah, fascistic systems don't last long. They self-destruct, you know? These systems self-destruct, and they don't last that long. They only care about preserving power for the elites, and the goals and the well-being of the common people are completely disregarded. And the last element to touch upon is corporatism and a controlled economy. Basically, fascism really is the merger of state and corporate powers. Okay, it's a marriage between state and corporate powers. You know, with the United States, the government is in bed with the corporations more than ever before. I mean, it always was. Capitalism is always a system in which, behind the scenes, the corporations really dictate the economy. But in capitalism, that control and that authoritarianism becomes overt in its expression. It's no longer a facade that they present to people. They come out and say it like, okay, we are controlling everything, we are dominating everything. Okay, a few corporations are going to control the United States. Okay, that is pretty much how it presents itself to the people in the end. Okay, so what is the root source of fascism? First, in order to understand fascism, we have to understand how capitalism is truly a fascistic system at its core, and it's undemocratic in its expression. What is capitalism? Capitalism is a system in which resources and labor are oriented in a way to grow an economy, and a system in which people have to compete with one another for survival. It maintains scarcity and inefficiency. As much as they say capitalism is all about efficiency and markets are efficient and all that nonsense, no, it's not. And all you have to do is look at the world around you. The concept posse weed comes into thinking. Posse weed, the purpose of a system is what it does, not what it is meant to do. Okay? So when you look at the world today, which is dominated by capitalism, okay, the key aspects of capitalism being growth and a growth economy, all right, labor for income, private property and competition. That is literally every country on the planet. Yes, China has a mixed economy, but it still is very much capitalistic, okay? When you look at the world that is dominated by capitalism, like those factors I told you, we have nothing but a capitalist system. And the results of that capitalist system over time have been an ever-increasing rate of inequality, an ever-increasing rate of ecological destruction, as we see with climate change, an ever-increasing inefficient use and extraction and depletion of planetary resources. That's really what the system is producing, okay? Those are the results of capitalism. And end-stage capitalism, late-stage capitalism, becomes overtly fascistic. As Jacques Fresco called it, you know, he said capitalism is fascism because the minute you punch into that time clock, the minute you punch into work, you're entering dictatorial, totalitarian institution. Most people on this planet do not have a choice. They are at the mercy of their employer. If you do not obey the absolute direction of your employer or your boss, you are threatened with homelessness. You can lose your job, you lose your health care, you lose your livelihood, okay? These corporations that employ so many people, they hold absolute control over the livelihood of people. And if you do not agree with your employer, they fire you. And then, as much as people like to say, it's easier to get another job. No, it's not. Look at the economy right now. The economy is complete garbage right now. Most people are working several jobs to survive, and they're barely making ends meet. In that aspect, capitalism is completely totalitarian, because when you live in a world in which technology has the capacity to provide us an abundance of resources and an efficient utilization of those resources to make sure everyone's taken care of and nobody's homeless, nobody's deprived. When you have that reality in which you can eliminate scarcity and poverty, but you don't do that, instead you force an artificial reality of infinite growth, competition, and artificial scarcity onto the population. That is an entirely contrived reality. That is not absolute reality. That's not the actual reality of the planet. It is a fake reality that is imposed by the totalitarian measures of capitalism. Okay? So, now that hopefully people understand and agree with me that capitalism at its core is totalitarian, and that fascism in reality is an expression of capitalism when things go so bad, when the capitalist system is starting to bottom out and it's not working anymore for most people, when the jobs are not coming back, when inequality is increasing so much, when people are barely surviving and they start to revolt, and people slowly become educated as to why the system is screwing them over, and you start seeing radicalization of the population against the system, they start losing control. The leaders, the elites start losing control, and they have to crack down with more totalitarian measures. Fascism is actually a control mechanism of capitalism to maintain itself for survival, okay? So in one sense of the word, capitalism is a control mechanism, it's a survival mechanism of capitalism to maintain itself. It is not separate from capitalism. It is not separate from free markets. Capitalism and fascism are the same thing, except that fascism, like I said, is literally the most extreme form and expression of late stage capitalism. And you know, I love how these fascist leaders, they like to scapegoat. That is one distraction method they use to scapegoat and distract people from the truth, okay? So they blame, you know, oftentimes, as we see with Nazi Germany, as we see with the United States, they blame immigrants, they blame a certain ethnic population, like Nazi Germany blamed the Jews for all their problems, okay? If we get rid of the Jews, everything will be fine. You know, get rid of illegal immigrants who are coming in there, raping, murdering people, and all this nonsense. The problem are trans people, the problem are gay people, the problem are the radical left, the so-called radical left. I mean, there does not exist an actual leftist revolutionary party in the United States, okay? It does not exist, okay? But they still like to use the word radical left, trans, immigrants, this and that. They blame these factors for the problems of society instead of showing people the reality, the truth, which is, okay, what is the true enemy? The true enemy is not only the billionaire class, which are actually doing the pillaging and the murdering, they're the ultimate criminal class. The problem is not only the 1%, but it's the actual mechanisms that produce the 1%. Like shark teeth, okay? A shark's teeth are removed, they're replaced pretty quickly. That is how the system functions. As even if you remove every single person from the top of these corporations and get rid of them, they will be replaced like that, okay? Because the system still exists. We have to remove the root source, the mechanism that produces elitist tendencies. Let's get to the main point of the video, which is how do we talk to fascists? How do we talk to them? I don't agree that we should dismiss every single person who comes off as fascistic. I think we should talk to some of them. Some of them are like far too gone, like they're, what do you call it? Far too gone, right? FTG, far too gone. Yeah, some people are just far too gone. Like someone like a Trump or a Stephen Miller, there's no point talking to those people. You have to freaking get rid of them. You have to jail them, remove them from society, because they're literally a cancerous tumor. It has to be dealt with, okay? Maybe in a violent manner. Most people who side with right-wing tendencies, like MAGA people, you should use some kind of intelligent points of analysis to educate them and make them realize, hey man, you've been lied to. You've been misled. The problem is not immigrants or trans people. The problem is the system. I like to use systems thinking to educate these people, to make them realize that, hey, you know, here's why you're thinking this way, A, and B, here's what we should do instead. So, hey man, you're a human being, I'm a human being. Regardless of whether you're black, you're Muslim, you're Christian, you're, you know, Democrat or Republican, does not matter. Every single person on this planet, every person, regardless of all those dimensional distinctions, we all need the same things for survival. We need food, shelter, community, education, healthcare to survive and do well and thrive. Now, what factors are getting in the way of us meeting those needs? You have to start breaking down capitalism. You have to start explaining to them how capitalism, because of the factors that of, like, you know, labor for income, which is being replaced by automation, all the jobs are going away to automation. They're kicking all these immigrants out. Why are they kicking all these immigrants out? Because they're automating a lot of the agricultural sector. So since a lot of these immigrants work in agriculture, they're kicking them out, but they're automating agriculture rapidly in the United States, okay? So automation is gonna remove jobs, and even though people need jobs to survive, those jobs are not gonna be there anymore. They're gonna be mostly low-paid jobs, and the corporations are having more and more power as time moves forward. The system is all about scarcity, maintaining scarcity. Okay, in the United States, we have 12.5, something like that, million empty apartments and homes, but we have only, you know, 1/3 or a quarter of that are homeless people. What does that tell you? The system is intrinsically inefficient. So you have to start using different angles to explain to them, hey man, the enemy are not the left or, you know, immigrants. The enemy is the system that is literally collapsing. The system is falling apart. And as it falls apart, it becomes more extreme and it becomes fascistic in its expression. So you have to make these people realize that, listen, you're not doing yourself any favor by thinking that fascism is a cool thing or right-wing thinking is a good thing. It's highly unsustainable and you're hurting yourself in the long run. So what you should do is bring people together. We have to try to unify. You have to use unifying language to show people, hey, we all need the same things for survival. And we have to come together and use these principles to make sure that all of our needs are met. As you expose the current system, you have to provide them an alternative that makes the existing system look completely obsolete. You know, one of the most profound things that I've heard ever in my life as an activist is that scarcity and inefficiency are the movers of money. Scarcity and inefficiency are the movers of money. The more scarcity there is, the more jobs there are. The more inefficiency there is, the more jobs there are, the more economic growth there is. GDP is literally an expression, is a value metric of how inefficient the system is, okay? The more sick people there are, okay, the more hospitals you can build, the more doctors you can employ to deal with those sick people, the more the pharmaceutical industry benefits. So as we move to remove problems and solve problems indefinitely, the more we reduce jobs in society, and the more it hurts the economy. An economy that literally depends on scarcity and inefficiency to survive. It is falling apart, it's destroying our ecosystems. And there's a huge amount of fear mongering out there. And when you fear somebody, when you don't understand somebody, you tend to fear them, right? And you become violent against something that you usually fear. Territorial disputes arise from a world of scarcity. A good example is the example of bonobos and chimpanzees. Chimpanzees live in a very scarce environment, desolate desert environment, and that's why they have formed extremely patriarchal, violent, hierarchical, and competitive systems, which are very violent and oppress their female of their species. Whereas bonobos, they live in lush environments with abundance of fruits, and because of that, they've created a system that is very much egalitarianism. Women have a lot more rights. I mean, the female bonobos have much more rights, and there are a lot more female leaders. And so bonobos are way more peaceful. Chimpanzees are very violent. Why? The environment is the differentiating factor. We have to make people realize overcoming scarcity is a key factor in removing fear and removing this idea of borders and disputing, immigrants and, this person versus that person, competition. In a society that truly embraces abundance and efficiency, there is literally no need for competition, no need for xenophobia, no need for police or military, okay? When you meet people's needs strategically and intelligently, there's no need for us to be competitive and violent with one another. And as always, I use the hunter-gatherer examples. The hunter-gatherers, I believe they have such a healthy value system, because even though they live in tremendously more difficult life because they live in the jungle, they don't have modern technology. However, they have minimalistic affluence, okay? They don't have a mindset of scarcity. People in modern society, in modern capitalist society, they live in constant fear of scarcity, okay? Even though we have, literally we have mass industrial farming, we have industrial production, manufacturing, we have mass distribution networks. Even though we have all that, our economic system restricts our access. It restricts our freedom and our liberty to live life as we want to live it. But the hunter-gatherers, they live in an abundant mindset. The world to them is an abundant environment where they have to just work hard to obtain resources, but whatever they obtain, they share with the tribe in an egalitarian manner. They don't have a strict, brutal hierarchy, okay? Women have much more rights in their society. They're not patriarchal, okay? So patriarchy, competition, violence, totalitarianism, these are all factors that are attributable to modern capitalist societies, okay? So if we simply embrace the value system and the mentality and the education of hunter-gatherers and superimpose that upon our modern technology, we can have a much, much healthier society. So that's why I always say you can't have one or the other. You have to have both. You have to have science and technology, right? You have to have advanced science and technology where you're constantly researching to come up with better methods of abundance and efficiency for society, and sustainability, obviously. I mean, recycling is a very important factor of that. But two, you should also, like what Einstein said, right? He said our technology has surpassed our humanity. We cannot allow technology to surpass our humanity. We have to educate, we have to bring up our value system. We have to become as educated as our technology, which means our value system and our cultural sustainability is so important. So as technology advances, so should our culture. But sadly, our culture is steeped in superstition. It is so primitive. We still think in terms of 10,000 years ago. We are still so primitive in the way we think and look at the world around us. We have to update our culture. And that is why we have all these problems right now. That is why technology is being misused. That is why instead of technology being used for, advanced agriculture, advanced water purification systems to make sure nobody has a lack of access to water, instead of using technology to use automation, to do all the, remove all the arduous labor, renewable energy, all these things, instead of putting our technology into these avenues, it's being mostly used for surveillance, authoritarianism, and the military. So technology is not the problem, okay? We have to understand that. We have to explain this to fascists. We have to explain this to people who are right-wing thinkers. Honestly, man, the Jacuqe Fresco method is so amazing. Jacuqe Fresco was such a charming and such an intelligent person who was so charismatic in the way he explained things to people. Long time ago, he told me a personal story where the FBI came to his house, they knocked on his door, and they said, "Hey, Mr. Fresco, we have come to investigate you." And he said, "It's about damn time. Come on in, guys. It's about damn time you did that." He brings the FBI in. He shows them what he's doing. He shows them, "Hey, I'm researching to arrive at the brotherhood of all mankind. I want to help America. I want to help the American people to obtain a more efficient and abundant economy that benefits everybody." He showed them what he's working on. He's like, "I'm not a terrorist. I'm not someone who's trying to destroy America." And the FBI literally were like, they're shocked. They're like, "Wow, we thought you were some kind of domestic terrorist, but after seeing what we see today, you are literally the most patriotic person we could think of. You actually care about the United States more than anybody we've ever seen." So they were baffled. They walked out so shocked and so surprised. And that's the key. We have to stop antagonizing people who are right-wing thinkers. Those of them who are not far too gone, okay? The ones who are not too far gone. We have to start using charismatic principles to hey guys, we're the same, man. You are my brother, you are my sister. We have to find common ground with them and bring them into the fold and educate them about what needs to be done. So in conclusion, we have to explain to right-wing thinkers, where do territorial disputes come from? Where do these obsessions over borders and competition and who's right, who's wrong, where does all this crap come from? We live in a society which embraces artificial scarcity and deprivation of the population. People are going to jump to all kinds of distorted, pathetic critiques and pathetic rationales to remove the rights of other people and give themselves more power. And that is the main problem. We have to explain to the people, listen, we need to arrive at the brotherhood of all mankind, okay? The brotherhood of all men, in which all human beings are provided for. Can we do that? Yes, we can. First of all, hey dude, get the hell out of your house, okay? Get out of the house and smell the fresh air, okay? Get involved with some kind of a community gardening program. Go to the gym, work out a little bit. Improve your life a little bit, man. You're sitting on your ass all day in front of the computer, watching right-wing nonsense, right-wing propaganda. Get out, get some real-life experience, okay? Find a job that truly rewards you. Find a job, do something that actually helps other people, contributes to society, okay? And then we have to show people, hey, we have to start forming strong communities. Like a farming community would be good. Using science and technology, using modern technology, which is becoming very much cheaper because of Moore's law and formalization, how, like a 3D printer was thousands of dollars when it first came out, but now you can find a pretty good 3D printer for like a couple $100s. These things are becoming cheaper, and as technology becomes cheaper, we have to start absorbing technology and utilizing technical means, forming strong communities of mutual aid where we take care of each other's needs, okay, and wean ourselves off the system. Now that is the subject for a much, much larger debate. You can start explaining to fascists, I hate to say fascist, because I don't think a lot of these kids are actually fascists. They're using the buzzword. They think it's cool to throw the word fascist around. They do align themselves with like MAGA and right-wing thinking, but they're deluded. They're brainwashed. You have to break it down. Hey bro, you're not doing yourself any favor by advocating for this kind of crap. Right now, we have within our means to use science and technology to create an economy in which, in our local setting, we can meet our needs. We can use automation to remove all the arduous jobs. So if all this whole deserving factor, so-and-so is a lazy bum, wants to sit on the bench and do nothing. He doesn't deserve health care. No, that's not true. If we have automation, if we use automation to do the agriculture, the farming work, use automation to run the factories, if we have intelligent feedback mechanisms like AI to make sure that we optimize our usage of technology, in which we're basically analyzing the system and providing proper oversight of how everything functions, then people can actually be free with their time to pursue their true passions. Instead of sitting behind a freaking desk watching nonsense, watching right-wing nonsense, you become an artist, you become a researcher, you become a creator, Okay, you become a world traveler, you become a poet. There's just so many things you can do with your mind. The human mind is so powerful. If we can start talking to people who are right-wing thinkers in this manner, I think it's way more productive than like hating them or like trying to fight against them, calling them an idiot or whatever, flaming them. Now, I mean, I know certain people are just, you can't use common sense with them. They're just far too gone. But I do believe a large enough percentage of the population is worth it for us to talk to and bring them into the fold. Because listen, man, I mean, I have Jacques Fresco. Jacques Fresco is somebody who I greatly admire. During his time, he made a lot of extremist thinking people realize the flaws in their way of life. Okay, he literally made the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, who's harder to convince than the Ku Klux Klan? Okay, the KKK. He made several chapters of the KKK fold up and dissolve because they realized how wrong they were. So if you can do that, you definitely can influence these young kids who are misled and misinformed to correct their way of thinking. So yeah, that's my idea for this video. That was it. Hope you guys found this to be helpful. I did the best I could to provide a little bit of a different way of thinking, like a systemic oversight, a systems view point on how to talk to these people. And yeah, that's all I got to say. What does it say? Growing love, community garden. Growing love, community garden. And in the end, listen guys, it is a brotherhood of mankind. We have to bring everybody together. The brotherhood of mankind, womankind, everybody. Animal kind, nature. We have to embrace the totality of life. We're all one. We're all in this together. And as the system collapses and becomes more scary and fascistic, we have to develop courage and steadfast commitment and have calm precision in how we strategize on solving our problems and bringing people together. Okay, we have to find commonality, common ground, and use the kind of language that brings more unification instead of stratification, right? And separation. With that said, fuck capitalism. I hope to see you guys soon. Peace out.